Yeah, no, perfect. That's amazing. Okay, cool. And that's a great place to be too, and just really ready to just absorb information. And I guess at the end, which I'll say now too, so Matt, I've worked with one-on-one. That's how I know him as well. So just so you both know that everyone's going to have particular personal things that I can't talk about in this forum, but if you would like to, I'm happy to work with you one-on-one. They're free sessions organised and supported by the SCPA, so you contact them and we can actually look at, okay, what is the goal that you're trying to work towards? And we would work through, I don't know if either of you were able to attend the financial wellbeing webinars, the 3-part series. That's where Matt kind of got involved last year. And it's kind of really just giving you a good understanding of where you are financially. Okay, so where am I? What am I doing? And get some financial goals, and I can then help you sort of shape that to be aligned with your values and what you're wanting to achieve. So yeah, more than happy to work with you individually as well. Oh, good. So cool. But yeah, thank you. It's really good to know. And obviously those people who are listening back as well, I know this is a valuable resource, and again, if you've got questions, please feel free to contact me at any time. So before we begin, I just want to do our acknowledgement of country. So I'm speaking from the Yugambeh country today, and I just want to acknowledge the country that obviously each of us lives on is connecting in from. So you're all from different parts of Australia, so just making sure we acknowledge that. And acknowledge the Aboriginal people and pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that the lands were never ceded and that inside and outside the buildings always will be Aboriginal land. So thank you for that. And thank you also, we haven't got Jodie here today, but just to thank the Postgraduate Association. They support these events and source people like me to come and try and help and support you. And finances was one of the major things that they had found in their research surveys out to students that students wanted information about. So that's why they've engaged me to help provide information and financial literacy education. So just for those who haven't come across me before, just to give you a little bit of an idea of who I am and where I'm coming from with delivering this workshop today. So my 15 years was in corporate accounting. So I'm a CPA, worked with a lot of top companies, Westpac, Bank of Scotland, worked here and in the UK, really helping them to manage their money. So management accounting, budgeting, making financial decisions. So helping those businesses achieve their strategic goals by managing their financial resources. And then I came on to teach here at Southern Cross, so unit assessor for postgrads and undergrads in management accounting and accounting units. And I've most recently also, I'm working at Swinburne University online as well, so really enjoying that work. Last year, I also studied the financial counselling qualifications. I'm a qualified financial counsellor, so I can provide that level of service as well to any students, and also provide you with, connection and support if that's needed as well. So I have a great interest in finances, and obviously coming from helping businesses with their finances, but now a real passion for helping individuals as well and sharing some of those basic financial skills to hopefully help you guys as well. And that's kind of my core message is throughout all of these webinars. It's really about helping you as students. I know you're so busy, studying your particular fields and getting to be experts in your field, and that's so important. And I know that money can be such a drain on energy and it can be so stressful. So what I'm hoping to do is through these webinars, help you to feel more confident with making your financial decisions so you can focus on your study and your career and the things that you're really passionate about. So money can sort of enable those things as opposed to causing stress and fear for you. So today's topic, so each month we're doing different topics, and I do say, if there's anything that someone particularly wants me to cover off, just let me know, just send an email through. But I'm just kind of picking off, the key things, usually from one-on-one sessions. I get ideas through those as well, what is really interesting and probably more students would benefit having some knowledge around. So today we're looking at investing, and as we already just chatted about, I'm pitching it right at the beginner level. So I think that's really appropriate for the majority of you. Even Meryl, who's had that exposure, I think going back to some of those basic foundations to kind of just start again and go like, right, where am I? And then, get yourself ready to then set a new strategy going forward. So we've got the hour. I don't want to talk the whole time because that's really boring, and you can interrupt me at any point. I'm trying to kind of make some sort of interactive, some questions as we go through, but I'm hoping it won't take the whole hour, so I can answer questions too at the end if you've got any. So really just simple 3 things I wanted to cover off is firstly, why would you want to invest in the first place, to kind of remind us why we're doing it, what is the value, what is the benefit of investing. We're going to look at sort of the high level how to invest, what are your options. I'm not going to go into detail about all the different types of stocks or investment properties or exposures, but I'm going to do some sort of really high level basic, how would you invest? And then obviously keeping the message about keeping it simple is really important. And I'll share with you some resources too. It's really important, like obviously you guys are, very effective at research and study, that those skills are actually going to be your greatest asset in terms of your financial life as well. So really draw upon those and remember to shape and grow your own expertise in this whole area of finance. It's not your study field area, but the skills that you have will really benefit from the skills that you're obviously using in your studies. So you may have been damaged in the past by people commenting about maybe it's your maths ability or the way you manage money or whatever it might be. I really hope that I can help you overcome some of that as well. A lot of people shy away or get overwhelmed by finances because somewhere along the life, somebody's judged them, or they may even be judging themselves, and we've got to try and let go of that as well and bring back some confidence and capability so you can feel, because it's not that complicated. What you guys are doing and researching and doing is far more complicated. It doesn't need to be for you to have money work for you to just, enable what you want to do in your life, have a source of security. We don't need to overcomplicate it. So one of the first things I want to cover off is the golden rules of investing, is what they'll say. And you'll see I've provided my sources as well. What I'm trying to stick with is giving you, which I'm going to, obviously you will be experts in as well, is knowing that the sources of information when you're looking at investing are really important. So I'm giving you information that's mainly coming from ASIC. So that's our government department that has obviously done basic research. It's objective. It's not trying to sell you anything. So really, a really good first off resource is going to ASIC, the Money Smart. Has anyone come across Money Smart before, the website? No? Cool. Well, that would be a really great one to access. And a lot of the information I'm giving you today is actually from there. So, and they've got a lot more extension from what we're going through, and they can have calculators and all sorts of things, but you know that it's a credible source. They're not trying to sell you anything. All they're trying to do, their whole purpose is about educating Australia as well to be better at money, managing their money. So before you even start investing, I guess this is where these golden rules are coming from, is the first thing is to make sure that you pay off your debts. So you don't want to have, some people will, hear from friends or family that, oh, you've got to invest in this, you've got to get crypto, you've got to whatever it is. But at the same time, they've got a massive credit card debt and they think, oh, maybe I should do that and then I'll pay it off with this. No. Before you even start investing, make sure you've paid off all of your debts, because they're costing you so much money just through them existing. So if you're at a stage where you have credit card debt, and I'm not talking about household debt here, so I'm not saying a mortgage, you can have a mortgage and invest, but this is really those negative sources of debt. So your credit cards, Afterpay, even loans for cars, things like that. So make sure you pay those off first. Yeah, sure, Tamsin.
Does that include your HEX debt?
No. So we did a HEX debt webinar a couple of months ago. So it'd be good to go back and listen to that. But the key message, if you don't have the hour to listen to it, is pretty much don't worry about your HEX debt. You don't need to pay it off early. It will just be, chipped away at when you're working. So don't just, and I provided all the analysis around that and what the actual figures were. So don't worry about your HEX debt at all. Yeah, just leave it. So that can be something that's just out of your mind. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Because you're not actually, the reason why quickly is that you're not actually paying interest. It's not like a credit card. It doesn't have a high level of interest. It just gets indexed each year. So it goes up slightly by, but that doesn't quite mean that you should worry about it. So don't worry about it. Cool. So this is kind of like an order in terms of you are thinking about, okay, where am I in my financial life cycle? Make sure, so the first thing to do is make sure you pay up all of your debts. So if you're at that stage, any available funds that you have, I would be encouraging you to channel towards paying off your debts, so you have those eliminated. The next thing then is to also make sure that once you've paid off those debts, is that you can build up an emergency fund, or a just in case fund, so you've got a buffer of money. And what that buffer does is it prevents you from getting into financial challenge in the future. So you know that you can, there may be changes in, for example, if there's, fluctuating costs, petrol's going up, whatever it is, or if you've got something going wrong with your car, you're not going to then have to take on debt to manage those situations. You've got those emergency savings there. Anybody, any ideas about how much emergency savings would be a good idea to have? Any thoughts?
Is it like tailor your own? Like, no, maybe that's not right. I don't know.
No. Well, always tailor your own is always, I would always say, is a parallel message to life in general. I think it's always important. So yes, there will definitely be. So from the financial world perspective, personal finance, they would say 3 to 6 months. So if you're in the, young, you haven't got kids, 3 to 6 months of expenses is a good emergency fund. If you're kind of moving into an older category where you do have children, so if you lose your job, or if you're in a category where you do have, and I know you've shared some of you with your potential career fields, you're going into careers that are a bit more challenging to find work, you yourself might just feel better with 6 to 12 months worth of expenses. So it's thinking through, what if I lost my job? And you may have income protection through your superannuation, but you want to think about, what would I do in that? How long would it take me to find a job, realistically, given the market? And that's what I would usually base it on. So you can have then 6 to 12 months. If you're getting into your retirement age, so if you're much older, they'll recommend you having 12 to 24 months of emergency savings. So Matt, you're right. You kind of have to kind of think about it yourself as well, consider your own circumstances, but also your own personality and feelings. It's not just, money isn't just a tick and flick and, numbers. It's about how you feel about it. So what does that emergency savings give you? Do you feel good? And that's where, someone might say, oh, you don't want to put 12 months aside because you could have invested that extra money. Well, that could be right for someone. But for somebody else who's considered, no, well, in my field of study and my work, it's hard for me to find work and I don't want to put myself in that situation or my family. And I just feel better having 12 months worth of expenses as my emergency fund. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I'd encourage you to kind of think through, what feels right for you. But as an absolute minimum, 3 months would be a good amount of those emergency savings. And obviously those emergency savings are covering off like your base expenses. So your rent and your mortgage, your electricity, groceries. Doesn't need to be those extras, because if you're thinking about that kind of scenario, you're not going to go on a holiday. You're not going to, so you don't have to put aside the money for that. But that would be the guide there. Do any of you have emergency savings already? Have you got them set up? No, kind of. Yeah, so that would be, if you haven't, sorry, Meryl.
Oh, I do, but yeah, probably more than I need, hence the interest in investing. Yeah.
More than you need. Yeah, cool. So that, and then this helps you to then make that informed decision. Like, you've got a gut feeling already, you've got some excess capital. What's a good thing to do with it? How can I steward this money effectively? Part of that money, that capital's job is going to be in looking after me during emergencies if that happens. So I'm going to, you'll work out what that amount is. And then you can separate it and say, okay, that 6 to 12 months worth of money is for this, and then whatever's left over, right, I'm going to give it another job. Yeah, so that's good. So yeah, definitely that would be the number one thing to do first, is build up that emergency. And it's really boring, I know, it doesn't sound very interesting. And where would everybody be parking those emergency savings? Where do you think a good place to put them would be?
That's what I'm deciding too. Haven't got there yet.
Yeah. So again, it's thinking through that scenario. So you lose your job, or you've something goes wrong with your car, or you need a new washing machine, or whatever it is. it's thinking, oh, you'll need that money quickly. So where do you put money when you need it quickly? Where would you put it?
Somewhere you can withdraw without great expense. Yeah.
Perfect. So you, and you also don't want it in a volatile situation. So some people might, oh no, you're not getting, you put it in like an ETF fund, put it in an index fund, and then you can just sell off some of it. But you don't want to have to be selling it when the market's low. So that's not a good place for emergency savings. So emergency savings are just going to sit in your boring, the best you can do is a high interest account. Even if you put it into a term deposit, those term deposits have obviously restrictions around, you know, they're usually set to be in there for 2 to 5 years or whatever the arrangement is. You could be in that first year and need those funds, and then you'll miss out on any of the interest. So just park it in the highest interest, you know, account that you can find, that also has no additional costs or fees. We want to be making sure that we're not, you know, incurring any additional cost where possible. So, you know, just a normal high interest account. No, it sounds really boring, but then that money is doing its job, and a really important job. So then working down, these are going to get more sort of broad and require probably webinars for each of them. So the next one is obviously thinking, you know, developing an investment plan. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. What is that at a high level? But we can obviously go into these in a lot more detail. You'll find units teach these, you know, over weeks. So, but I guess the key thing is that having a plan. So not doing anything just ad hoc is never going to be a good idea. Having a systematic, structured way of managing your finances is always going to be, you know, the best advice. Research of different asset classes. So asset classes mean, you know, shares is one of them, property is another one. So really it's just another word for different types of assets and different things that you would invest in. So, and what goes along with that, which I'll talk a little bit more about too, is, you know, you will find that you'll have different associations or inclinations with different asset classes. So Meryl, from your experience with shares already, and investment properties too, you might have, and some people just really love investment properties, or they've had families that have managed them and that felt like the right thing for them to do. But what I'll share with you is what some of the things you want to consider. And really in investing, it's about what is the risk of each of those asset classes. And a lot of the risk associated with them, some of it's to do with the asset class itself. So what's the exposure? So shares, you can have, so obviously massive if you start looking into it, a subset of, you know, you can have shares that are domestically, like Australian focused, international focused. They can even within that, the different industries in which you're investing. So a lot to learn. But again, I'll give you some resources about how to keep this simple. Making sure that you diversify your investments is obviously one of the fundamentals of investing too, not putting all of your eggs in one basket. And that's probably a no-brainer for everyone too, and just a reminder. But what's the real risk if you do that? If you put, you know, everything into, say, an investment property, or everything into even the, you know, the cannabis thing that you're talking about, Tamsin. So if you put all of your money into one thing, what's the risk there?
That you can lose it all.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and there's always, and depending on the different asset classes, there's going to be different. Some are more risky, and even if you put all of your money into something conservative like cash, you're also risking the effects of inflation. So I'll talk, that's kind of one of the reasons why we should invest as well, because we need to fight against that. And I guess one of the other key things is being able to keep track of your investments too. And that kind of brings us to and if you want more information about each of those, it is provided on Money Smart's website too. So you can actually go into each of those headings and they'll provide you with more information and different calculators as well, and even some templates that can be helpful. So if there was something particular in those, even paying off your debts first, they'll give you some examples of different strategies that you can go through. So that's kind of before we even get into talking about investing. But I guess the first thing I wanted us to also think about was, why would you invest in the first place? And I guess I've got lots of different ideas here, but why does everybody want to invest? What's the motivation?
I'd love to retire early.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So it's that end game. It's starting with that end in mind for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're wanting to.
Well, partly, but also have the flexibility to semi-retire or just travel and be able to do what I want to do in the meantime. Life's short, and I want to,
Yeah.
that's.
And that's kind of speaking to the last point there, which is about giving you choices. So you want to have the choice. If it is that, maybe it's, you get there and you've got, amount to look after yourself, but you still really enjoy what you're doing and you want to work 2 days a week, but that's your option. You want it to be able to be an option. So that's great. So part of the why for you is to have that flexibility, and the financial goal that goes along with that is to really build wealth to give yourself that amount of flexibility. And then the big question is, well, how much wealth do I need? And have you thought about that, and how do you quantify it as well? So I'm thinking of this is going to be another webinar follow-up from this one, is actually looking at how you do quantify that. And it's probably getting a little bit more technical and using Excel spreadsheets. So I didn't want to bring that in on our first investing webinar, but there is quite simple ways that you can actually work through scenarios to look at, okay, what are my net financial resources that I have now? What is some of the possibilities in terms of my work, my super contributions? You can kind of look and project and forecast where you'll be in 20, 30 years time, and then say, okay, well, what kind of life would that give me? So you can kind of make informed decisions now with that end in mind. Yeah, so that's cool. So yeah, definitely the choices. So investing is hopefully the whole reason is that you want to grow your money. That's yeah. And Matt, you'd probably be the same. Is that the kind of the similar?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Why?
Well, probably health, lifestyle, and life experiences that are enjoyable, not kind of being locked down in a job because like your hands are tied a little bit and you feel you're obligated to have to work upwards of 40 hours a week just to survive. Like it just personally, like that's not really an option for me in my past, but so it's definitely just those three kind of key things that I think generally most humans want.
Yes, absolutely.
To be healthy, to have a lifestyle that they, for at least some of it they enjoy, and that's about it. I don't know, I'm a bit frazzled, but
no, that's perfect, and it's absolutely right. And I think at that stage too, what you're kind of, it's really important to identify is that kind of honouring the role that money does play in our life too, in enabling us to, because sometimes we forget and we just associate a lot of negativities around money and how rich people are greedy and what have you, but to just think in your own personal life, the really important role that it can play in enabling you to live a healthy life, one that's not full of work and stress and activity that you don't enjoy, and getting it to actually to fulfill that role. And that's, I guess, what we're really talking about here as well, is trying to make sure that, and that's different for everybody as well, which is really important. That's why whenever you're learning about how to manage your money and you're reading investment books or listening to podcasts, whatever it may be, everybody's coming out from different they're coming from a different base of assets to begin with, but also a different life that they want to lead. For one person, they might really enjoy the work that they do and they like going in and working the 40 hours. That feels to them, it comes back to that there is a higher level purpose to this as well, and to money, and it's really nice to also recognise that. So and Tamsin, for you, why would you want to invest? What's your real motivation?
I'm 40 now, and I'm still a student, and I've never had savings or anything, and I want the next part of my life to be easier and better and less stressful, and I want to travel and I want to do all these things, but I obviously need to get some sort of control of my money before I can do that. That's good. So that's really nice, is to know what is it's really good to be clear on what are the things, and for you individually, what is it that you really want out of life, and what you enjoy, what are the experiences that you want. And then it's a matter of making, as I was saying again, that it's making your money achieve those. Give money, different parts of your money,
that job, that goal of achieving that. So if it's a particular overseas experience that you want, well, I need to put, you know, if I've got this $5,000, how, and that costs me 10, how do I get it to do that? But it's also about prioritization as well, is working out what are the things in life that I want to experience and I want to do, but knowing that there's going to be a trade-off. Is it possible to do them all? You know, that's up to you to work through and to know, you know, what are the experiences? How could they be done? How could they be done differently, you know, with a particular amount of money? But the first thing is to be really clear on what is it that you want to achieve with your money and what is the goal. So that's why I guess having this kind of hierarchy of financial needs is kind of helpful as well for some people, thinking about, you know, the role that money plays in your life. So obviously it helps with your basic necessities, your security and safety needs, just like a Maslow's hierarchy, I'm sure that you've all come across before, that, you know, establishing, you know, obviously those base needs first, building up to the point where, you know, the ideal scenario would be that you could leave some kind of legacy. So if you have children or young people in your life or not, it's not just about passing on to them, but passing on to, you know, other causes or businesses or whatever it may be that's really important to you that you'd like to be able to pass on. So that's probably, you know, the ideal scenario, that everyone could live out their life and have something left over to offer as they passed away. But not necessarily everyone's going to, you know, if that's achievable or not, it's kind of up to your own, you know, personal circumstances and what you want to actually achieve and experience in your life. But that real financial independence is obviously just a core human need. I think, Matt, like you're picking up on, it's just having that sense of independence. But I guess a reminder of that too is that it's not just about, you know, we have a lot of cultural impacts of what our life should look like and what it should be and what you should do. But I find, particularly working with students in higher education, that you're very good at challenging those, which I think keep encouraging you to do, because this is, you know, you've got to define what it is that you want. You don't need the White House picket fence and whatever. If that's what you want and that's what you really, really genuinely will want to enjoy, absolutely, that, you know, create that life. But it's about the harder path is actually you coming up with and knowing yourself and knowing whatever it is that you want to achieve and experience. So that's really, you know, like, I guess that's that. It's probably just become a popular thing to everyone always ask, what is the why? What is your why of investing? But just a good reminder, it just motivates you to know why you're wanting to invest, and also why you might, after this workshop, want to invest some time learning more about investing as well. One of the other whys, so you've probably come across this before, another why of investing is, I would say, is compound interest. So you know, you may have heard this and seen this quote before about it being the 8th wonder of the world, but it's really speaking to the value of investing and how incredibly powerful it is if you make little investments, small amounts, compounding with interest over, and you've got consistency and patience. The power of compound interest is exponential. So the value of your money, and you'll see in our next slide where I've got two different people, just trying to decide where I put your faces so I can read the slide. So we've got two different people, similar, you know, situations, but they've started at different times. And I know this isn't, looking at the ages they are when they're investing too isn't going to be great necessarily for everyone at the ages that you are, but even where you are, if you've still got 20 years where you're going to be earning money or being able to put it away and save it and put it into a fund where you're going to get that benefit of compounding interest, it's the amount of time that you can leave it there that is really the big value in compounded interest. So what we can see, and I guess my overarching question is, who would you rather be? And we've got two blokes here, so I had to just pull examples, and apologies for the genders. But it was from, this is another source, so this is an American-based big company, something that you might want to have a look at as well. They've got a whole lot of different resources as well. Obviously, when I research all of this stuff, I'm not attached to anybody either, so I'm completely independent, but I just do my own research and just find what is useful, what gets you to think about things, but also what's explained in a really helpful and easy way. And where people keep things simple as well is really important to me. So what we've got here is just two different people who started investing. One started investing at 21, one started at 30, and they're contributing the same amount each year, but obviously over that time, the amounts that they contribute is different, so about $70,000 difference there. But the value in terms of the final investment value because of compound interest is massive. So the key message when you look at that, you might be looking at a graph going, what? And you're looking at the figures. The key thing here is just that eighth wonder of the world. So compounding interest, that you'll see the curve is becoming that exponential, you know, where you can be patient, consistent, and have investments, and this is where we'll break them down. So you might be saying, okay, well, what is this invested in? In this scenario, in American markets, it's a mutual fund. So it's just a managed fund that would have been split across asset classes to be probably a reasonably conservative sort of mid-range. And I don't know if they've included the return, that I think they're getting about 10% return a year on average. So there might have been years where obviously like we are now, we're seeing declines, but there'll be great growth as well. But on average, it was returning 10%. So I guess the key thing of me, reason why I'm including this is it doesn't matter what age you are now, but just starting and being able to invest. If you've ticked off those other golden rules, you paid off your debt, you've got your emergency fund, then you're in a really good position to start and think, okay, what can I do with my money? But you've got to be thinking about it alongside some of your other life goals, because here you're seeing the compound interest is all about time. So that money ideally would be put away for some time, you know, using money. If we're talking about funding an early retirement, that money's got to be in there for quite a while. So this will be you deciding, okay, I'm going to give some of my money that job of being able to give me flexibility about the time I retire. It needs to be in there for, here we're seeing, you know, almost, you know, 40 years for some people. And that's not going to be a reality for all of us, but the sooner it's in there and getting that interest, the better. So I guess that's the key piece there with compound interest. Sorry, and this is a bit of a busy slide. Apologies for that, just trying to get a whole lot of information in here as we move into looking at, okay, so how do we invest? And the key thing starting with is making sure you've got a plan. So, and within that plan, that you have specific financial goals and breaking them down into, and being very clear about the time frame in which you want to achieve them. The time frame is really important when you're choosing your investments. So as you can see here, so this information again from Money Smart, you'll see the different risk return and investing timeframes that they're suggesting around these different types of investments. So you've got your cash, fixed interest, property, shares, and these are really high level again categories. You can obviously dig into those, and you know, for property you can have commercial property, you can have residential property, you can have, so it becomes a minefield. So but just at this first level, just acknowledging that there are the different asset classes and knowing that the risk associated with them is often to do with the time horizon. So if you've got a chunk of money that you've already got your home, or maybe you own your home, even if you're paying off your mortgage, but you know that your salary that you're earning, you can manage that, and you've just got an extra amount of money that you want to invest. You need to think about the time frame that you're happy to put it away for, because that's then going to impact your decision around which class of investments that you're going to go with. So you can see here that they're recommending any property or shares. You wouldn't want to invest in those if you're wanting to say save up for a house deposit and you want to buy a home in put that deposit down in 5 years. There's too much volatility in your property and your share markets. But again, this is really high level because at this sort of beginner stage, that you wouldn't want to put it into anything like that. So if you're wanting to use that money within the first, next 5 years, that putting it into somewhere that gives you fixed interest. So that's a high interest account. That's a term deposit. That's where you'd be putting that money. But if you have money that you you don't need to access until you're really saying, I want this to give me flexibility at the end of my career. You can then put it into alternative investments, shares, property, knowing that that time horizon is more likely to be 5 to 10 to 20 years. That's when you can put it aside, and you will be able to then, and hopefully if you don't watch the share price, Meryl, so if you're watching it and you know it is so emotional, investing, and we've got to know that most of the decisions that are made are emotional, and we've got to try and help support ourselves to make, really functional decisions without getting drawn into those emotions. And that might be, if you do have an amount of money that you don't need to access for 20 years, that there's no point actually going in and checking the value of that investment more than once a year. You might just keep track of it. And I definitely encourage you to keep track of your investments to see how they're going, but you don't need to be checking. If you're hearing the news, oh no, there's this downturn or that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually affect you right now, because you don't need to sell your investment now. You're in it for the long game. You're gonna sell it in 20 years time, and the market's going to be in a completely different way. Yeah. Sorry, Meryl. Yeah.
I guess for me at the time, I knew I was going back to study, so it was a more of an immediate sort of anxiety as to what to do with those shares, and it was an ethical thing too. I didn't want my money to be sitting with that company forever, so it's kind of, things have changed now, but hopefully I could learn.
But they're all really reasonable things to have factored into your decision, though, and I hope that you can see that too, just on reflection. So that they're not. Yeah. They're not, and it's understandably emotional too, as you see it, and if the share price had gone down. But on balance, you've got to make those decisions and say, well, no, these shares aren't actually, and that's something we haven't spoken about. That's kind of a whole nother topic too, is about ethical investing and making sure that, because what you're trying to do when you are investing is you're trying to build wealth for yourself, and you have a purpose for that money, an intention for that money, and it might be that you want to build wealth so you can actually help others. So you can create a fund that you could set a foundation up. But in the wealth building, you want to make sure that the money that you put aside and as building in businesses, you want to check that those businesses are actually
aligned with your values.
So and that's also that's really it's not easy. So we've got to, and like everything in life, it's always like a trade-off between, what can you reasonably do as well? Because the number one thing is that we do all need to care for ourselves, and in caring for ourselves, care for our money and look after ourselves, so we can look after ourselves when we're not working, and we don't need to be a burden on our family. That's the general feeling. So, but it doesn't mean that you're going to then just invest in anything that's going to give you a wonderful return. But at the same time, if you spend so much time trying to nitpick on every investment, it's really hard to find companies that are absolutely pure and you're going to be 100% okay with. But at least having a process that allows you to work through and eliminate some of those ones that you were just not going to. And that's really important. So, and for some people, it's really, some things that they find are unethical, different to other people, and again, it's just where you've got to really integrate your own values and align them to what you're investing and what you're doing with your money, and you're going to get more value and meaning out of the money that you do have through doing that. So yes, I guess that's this kind of, and I'm looking at our time too, making sure we're sticking to this, not using up everyone's time, but so at this high level, just to get that idea that the different investments that you may be looking at, the time horizon is really important. So knowing what it is that you want to do with that money and the purpose of that money, because that will define some of the different types of assets and investments that you'll go into and have a look at. And how important it is to diversify those investments too. And this is just a really high level sort of infographic that at least just gives you a bit of an idea of what you would do at different ages, and you can see how over your life you actually adjust the way in which you're investing, and that's all to do with, again, that time horizon, because as we get older, we've got less time for our investments to ride the ups and downs. So we need to shift the allocation of our assets to make sure that we're then managing those risks. So diversifying your investments is really important, not putting all your eggs in one basket, but then, yeah, also looking at the risk associated with time. So we can see, so somebody younger can obviously take on a lot more risk because they've got a lot more time for it to resolve. And then when you're getting older, you can see that the fixed income portion is the majority of their sort of investment portfolio. Matt, sorry, you had a question?
Yeah. Just like in a nutshell, equity and fixed income, these are types of investments, yeah?
Correct. So equities are like your shares, and
yes.
fixed.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And fixed income would be your high interest savings account. So you've got a fixed percentage that you're getting, no volatility. You're not exposed to the markets. It's quite stable. That's probably, and there are other types, but yeah, your equities are your shares. So you've got much more volatility exposure there. But again, as I said, this is really high level. When you go into equities, there are then some equities, some shares that are riskier than others. So it needs that level of detail to get into. But this is just that high level concept. So yeah, you're going to have much more of your portfolio in high risk, high growth investments, and then that will taper off as you get older, and the reason why is mainly due to that time horizon. And hopefully you'll see this reflected in your superannuation. So I'm assuming does everybody have some super balance, some amount of super? No, Matt, you haven't got yet. So
I could literally start it right now though.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So and that's often one investment that we forget about as well. And we're really lucky in a lot of ways in Australia that we do have super, and it is the whole principle of which it's built upon is that compounding interest. So the idea was, as soon as you start working, the philosophy is get somebody saving, right at 16 when they get a job, whatever it is, because that's supporting that person to save and have that long time horizon to get that compounding interest going. So for many of us, again, it's different personally, depending on when you worked, how much you worked, if you took a break for study, children, whatever it might be. So that impacts that super. Another side recommendation tip that you'll find consistently, which I've got down here as well, is to increase that superannuation contribution. So at the moment, it's just gone up to 10.5. Generally accepted guidance is to increase it to 15%. That's going to help you to build up your retirement funds much more effectively. So if you have got, if you're able to manage that, so if you have money, because obviously that gets taken out before tax, so it'll reduce your taxable income, but it will still have a cash flow impact for you. So you need to look at that personally, if you can still manage your household income by increasing your super contribution. But the most of the time, it's really easy. You just change it, let HR know, send them an email, whatever it is, increase the contribution, and you won't even realise it, but it will allow your super to really build up nicely. And making sure, because obviously super is going to be a really big part of your investment portfolio, is to investigate, and I've got linked here is the ATO's website that allows you to compare superannuation funds. So superannuation funds, they all slice and dice everything differently. They're going to charge you differently. But one of the key things to building your superannuation wealth is to make sure you're in a low cost superannuation fund. So look at the fees that they charge. So it's not just about the returns. So somebody might be like, oh no, we allow you to get, we're so good at investing and we can, predict the market and we can return you 20% a year or whatever it is, but they may charge you. So you actually don't realize the benefit of that growth that they can supposedly do, because no one can really do that. But it's really about the fees. So I'd really encourage you to, look at whether you can increase your contributions to 15% and compare your super funds, because you can change super funds. Make sure that you're actually getting value out of that super fund. And now that you have this info, check where your funds are invested. So most of the time they will have different, like these little pie graphs, they will have different ones for different ages, and they'll just slot you into the one that's your age. And you can actually ask them for information about, well, where is my money getting invested? And that might inform your decision about if you want to change super funds as well. So it may be that you don't like, it's not aligned to your values, the particular companies that they invest in. So worth checking on that as well. Tamsin, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so you said it's before tax. So if we contribute to our super, then does that decrease our taxable income?
Yes. Yes, yeah. So you just need to have a look at what, so and that's why it's not a, so if you're putting in an extra 4.5%, because your employer should put in the 10.5, and all you want to do is you're closing that gap. So if the government increases it again to 11%, make sure that you're only ever contributing 15%. It doesn't need to be any more than that. So yes, you'll contribute that extra before tax. It will reduce your taxable income. So the net cash flow effect for you will be less significant. But again, you can, there's calculators that you can put in to actually see what it does. You can also just try it, like your HR, wherever you work, you just ask them to change it. Then you actually see what the dollar value is and how it works. And if you realize, well, no, that's, I don't have enough to cover my daily living, you can then put it back to 10.5. They can change it however many times, so it's fine. But yeah, it's just a good, a really consistent financial piece of advice amongst a lot of, even across, countries. They're saying the 15% is really a good amount to be putting aside. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to just jump through a couple of things. This is just a quick question. As you get older, would it be wise to invest less of your money in cash? So kind of just pulling back what we were looking at in terms of those little pie graphs. So as you get older, do you think you'll be putting more of your money in cash or less?
More in cash.
Yes, great, cool, because it's much less risky. So as you get older, you're going to want to have a less risky portfolio, and that means having more cash, more fixed income is what you'd see. Yeah, perfect. And this is again just showing you the different returns and expected risks, similar to that other table that had lots of information in it from ASIC, from the Money Smart. So really, yeah, encourage you to go and check out that website. And this is the kind of the final step is reminding just to keep it simple. I know there's just every day there's more information, there's more advice, there's more products. It's overwhelming. So just to kind of protect your peace in terms of how you manage your money and what you're doing and what your goals are. Obviously, we all need to not get groupthink and get so enclosed in your own little world. Research, listen, read, consider other people's points of view, but always come back to your own personal life and financial situation. What is it? Where are you at? What do you want to achieve? So set your, goals for your investments. Increase your super to 15%. Choose good growth investments that you understand. Another really key simple rule is don't invest in things you don't understand. Invest in companies that you use, that you appreciate, that you like, you value, and that you understand and that you can see are managed well. And invest with that long-term perspective wherever possible, because you're going to get that benefit of the compounding interest. And then seek help and feedback, from an independent financial professional. So really important there. Would definitely recommend, if you want to get financial advice, like any good researcher, go and make an appointment, at least 3 different people, different ages, different nationalities, different genders, to get a really rounded, objective, perspective on your financial situation and what advice they would give you. A lot of them won't charge, they'll charge you a lot to do a statement of financial advice. That will cost you at least $3,000 to $5,000. But before you even get to that, you can go and speak with them and talk to them, and they will do that for free. So I really encourage you to, if you're interested and you're not sure and you'd like some feedback on what you're doing with your finances, seek the help. Again, Money Smart has a whole list of different, a database for registered financial advisors. But really important that when you see them, that for a long time, their role has been, I guess, their job and their money is completely linked to the investments that they sell. So it's not objective. And the same with banks. So to be really healthily, which I know that you'll all be very effective at doing too, is to think objectively about, you know, what's in it for this person. You know, if you want to see if there's any kickbacks for whatever they're recommending, how are their payment structures, if that's, you know, a path that you want to go down, if you need help with financial advice, just be, you know, really mindful and ask questions if you don't understand something. And yeah, so just really important to get that independent advice. And this was just a list of some of the resources that I thought I've kind of used today as well that you'd find helpful. Obviously, the Money Smart one is there. Scott Pape, some of you have probably come across him before as well, the Barefoot Investor, quite well known. Some people like him, some people don't. Again, just might be useful to check out some of his resources, see what he has to say. I came across this New Zealand. I quite like some of the New Zealand advisors too, really down to earth and grounded in their work. He's an older guy, he's been doing financial advice forever, but even just reading some of these books can be quite helpful. CanStar also has information about independent financial advisors and planners that would be worth accessing. So remember, just keep looking, and digging that little bit deeper, which I know you guys will be great at, you know, with your research skills, just to really check, is there anything behind this? Are they hiding anything here? To make sure that, and any comparison sites, I would really encourage you to try and use a government comparison site for anything financial, as opposed to even CanStar or iSelect. They pay CanStar to have particular funds listed on their site. So it's not objective, it's not a level playing field. So wherever possible, use the government sites. They might be a bit harder to use, they're not as pretty to look at and navigate, but they've got all of the information in there, and it's going to be completely objective. All right, so I know that I've just thrown a lot of information at you, but I hope that it's been helpful to at least give you a little bit of an orientation towards investing. I hope that it's maybe sparked a bit of interest. I hope I haven't turned anybody off. They're kind of, you're feeling like, oh no. But yeah, so I hope that at least to activate you to get interested in it, to find out more information. If you want to come and have a chat to me, just contact the SCPA. I'm happy to do that one-on-one as well. But any last questions before we kind of wrap up? No.
I'll have plenty, but I'm particularly interested in looking into, just because I know what my relationship with single investment company, you know, investing in individual companies, and just I'm looking at maybe going through one of those platforms that do a diverse portfolio.
Yep.
That will mean I'm not as attached to it as well. But
that's
just
interesting. So
curious to hear.
Yeah, and you can, and we didn't talk about that either. But when you build up your own portfolio, there are different ways in which you can do it. So yes, you can decide, you know, maybe you choose 10 different shares or 10 different companies, and you split and you purchase those them yourself, and you have a portfolio. To the other extreme, where you buy an index fund, and those index funds actually invest in the index or in the top 200 companies, or there's so much on offer. I'd encourage you to go and have a look at Vanguard stuff. Have you heard of Vanguard?
Yes, I've heard of it. I don't know.
That's okay. But
there's also
Vanguard. Yep.
There are some platforms that make it really easy to put your money in an account, and they do a diverse portfolio for you. But I'd be curious to hear what your experience with those are, as far as
And my key thing would always be, when you're looking at them, is to make sure that you're comparing like with like, and you know exactly what it is that, because again, they'll slice and dice and hide things. So make sure you know how much it costs to have the account, how much it costs for trades. So if they make decisions to ensure that you've got the right asset allocation, they might buy and sell part of that fund. Are there any costs associated with that? Because